Hey guys, this is Candle and welcome back to another collection update. I was going to hold off a little bit on doing this one because I was bidding on a couple things on eBay, but unfortunately I ended up not winning those auctions, which really sucks because I really wanted those couple items. Maybe sometime in the future. Anyways, I ran to the local retro store not too long ago and ended up pretty much doubling my Genesis collection, so I've got a good stack of games here to get through. We're going to start off with a handful of games that I did have when I was a little kid, but I only had them as I only had just the cartridges back then. This time, all these games are in cases. Some of them are reproduction cases, some of them are original, some of them have reproduction artwork on the covers, but for the most part, as far as I can tell, every single actual cartridge is original. So, and I do have a fair number of manuals with them as well. So starting things off, we have Disney's Aladdin. Yes, this is the Genesis version, which is harder in from the Super Nintendo version. Different too. And it's a really, really good side-scrolling platformer. You know, Disney really knocked it out of the park back in this era where they were releasing like tons and tons of really good games. Aladdin is considered like one of the best. It's also one of the hardest on the Genesis, I believe. And then we also have Disney's The Jungle Book, which is another one I had as a kid. This one I'm pretty sure is reproduction artwork because of how dark and oversaturated it is. But it's not too bad. Usually you can tell by like how it feels. This feels almost like regular paper, but not quite. This feels heavier, so I don't really know. But it has the black and white cover manual, and this was a game. I think it was released both in the plastic case and also in the cardboard boxes. Later on in the Genesis lifespan, Sega got a bit cheap and they stopped making games in the plastic cases and put them in cardboard instead. Some games were released only in cardboard. Some games were released, both ways. And typically the games that were released in the cases had full color covers to the manuals, even if the manual itself was black and white. And then this is all black and white. So I don't know like if this manual originally came with this case or whatever, because it does seem like it's an original case. So I don't know, but still decent game. We also have Taz and Escape from Mars. This was another one I had as a kid, and it's good to have this again. And this is an original case, but again, it's got the black and white manual. Aladdin has one that's in color, so I don't really know so much what's going on with that. But beyond Taz from Mars, I also have Tazmania, which is the first Taz game, Tasmanian Devil from the Looney Tunes. Now, in terms of story, Escape from Mars and Tazmania are not related to each other. It's like how Looney Tunes shorts they're not typically related to each other, even if they feature the same characters. And you can see here we have the color manual here as well, since this is an older Genesis game. And it is an official case as well. I don't know if you can see it, but it's got the Sega logo right there. But yeah, gameplay is very similar between this and Escape from Mars, and this one I'm pretty sure did come out first. Also picked up Mortal Kombat 2 to go along with my first Mortal Kombat, which is on the shelf up here somewhere. And moving on right along, I did get some other fighting games. I'm not a huge fighting game fan, but I do play them on occasion. And what's really interesting is the Genesis has a 6-button controller, which is perfect for fighting games. But unfortunately, my Retron 5 is not recognizing the 6-button controller that I actually have, which is from the Genesis 3, the really small one. So it's not recognizing that. I pretty much need to find an original 6-button controller, not the redone 6-button controller that I have. However, these games are playable with the 3-button controller, but you're stuck using just punches until you hit the start button, then it switches to, you start using just kicks until you hit the start button, then it switches to punches and back and forth. You have to hit the start button every time you want to switch between punches and kicks. And it's pretty much a standard for all these fighting games that I did pick up. So here we have Street Fighter II Prime Special Championship Edition. This is, of course, the version of Street Fighter II that came on the Sega Genesis. This is actually included in the Sega Genesis Mini. So it's very good to have an actual copy of Street Fighter II in physical now, because the only two other copies I own, which is this version on the Genesis Mini, and then Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo Fighting Edition, I think it is, or Hyper Fighting Edition, something like that, is on the Super Nintendo Mini. So this is my first actual physical copy of this. And of course, you know, Guile's theme really does go with everything. And then beyond that, we have the other one, a fighting game that was on the Genesis Mini. We have Eternal Champions, which is kind of these almost like superhero type things where they're all pulled out of their own time spot and they get to figure it out, to fight and figure out who's going to survive and go back to their time and fix things. And really, really interesting one. I will say, though, play this on a CRT if you can, because a lot of Genesis games, but this one in particular, but a lot of Genesis games really use dithering to fake transparency as well as a higher color depth. And Eternal Champions uses it like crazy in the environments, in the menu screens, in the character portraits. Everywhere is dithering to try to fake that higher color depth. You know, get more colors out of the Genesis than are technically possible. And then I have the last game that I got in this series that is from the Genesis mini collection. And unfortunately, I'm pretty certain for a fact that this is a reproduction case and a reproduction artwork. However, again, it's still the original cartridge. And that is, of course, Columns. Everybody needs Columns in their Genesis collection. Now, the way I can tell that this is reproduction is not only the fact that the case feels too new and crisp, and there's no Sega logo on it, but the artwork feels like regular paper. A little bit heavier, but still regular paper that's just been printed on. And it's like really, really dark and a little bit soft around the edges, a little bit blurry. And like the art is like oversaturated and everything. So that's really how I can tell, which kind of sucks. And also the other thing is the spine. This is what kind of clued me into it in the first place. Notice how big that Genesis logo is on the spine. Typically when it's shown the full badge like that, it's not usually that big. Like if we show the red case ones, the Genesis lettering is almost identically the same size. But if we show it with, there we go, with one of these, look how much smaller that is. And then showing it with something else that doesn't have the barcode on the spine. Because the Sega Genesis is really weird. Yeah, see how much smaller that is there as well. So yeah, the Genesis is like really, really weird in the fact that they rebranded their boxes like constantly. You know, I thought the PS3 was bad with it originally having that, you know, Spider-Man lettering PS3 in the red and the black, and then switching to the more standardized, you know, curved PS3 on the black, and then changing that to blue once the PS4 came out. But the Genesis is just like all over the place, which kind of sucks, but somewhat. But it's anyways. Moving on, I do also have Columns 3. I don't have Columns 2 yet, but I do have Columns 3. And this one is a bit interesting because this supports up to 5 players. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, you probably do, but the Genesis only has 2 controller ports on the front of the system. So there's actually a separate peripheral you can get that will add more controller ports to it for higher multiplayer support in certain games. In particular, here you got Columns 3, which supports play with up to 5 people. This also has sort of a limited story mode as well. It's basically just a set of challenges, kind of like Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, with like a little bit of like characters that you're playing against, computer characters you're playing against, that, you know, spout off some trash talk before and after the match. But yeah, and something else to talk about is this guy on the front here. Look at how crazy he looks. And it's just like really wacky. I don't know why they put that on the cover, but you know, they did. So beyond that, I also got Thunder Force 2. Now, this one's an interesting one because I have 2 sets of artwork in this. You know, I thought this was hilarious because it came with the reproduction artwork on the top, and then there's also the original artwork in here as well. And believe it or not, these are actually like slightly different sizes. Like the original artwork is just a little bit taller, but beyond that, it's like almost like exactly identical. I found that hilarious that it has the original artwork and the reproduction artwork, because this is another reproduction case as well. You know, it doesn't say Sega or anything in it. Street Fighter 2's case actually says Capcom in it, interestingly enough. But yeah, Thunder Force 2 is a game I would not have picked up had I not played Thunder Force 3 on the Sega Genesis Mini. So I am definitely planning on getting the rest of the Thunder Force games at some point as well. This is a shmup, and this one is actually interesting because it's it alternates between top-down levels and side-scrolling levels. Thunder Force 3 is pure side-scrolling, but this one alternates between top-down and side-scrolling levels, and it's kind of interesting in that way. And then back to the Disney games, not every Disney game was perfect, and I have in my hands probably one of the worst, especially for the Sega Genesis. And it's fitting that the artwork here is reproduction, I think. It might not be reproduction. I don't know, because it feels too thick and heavy to be regular printer paper or anything like that. But it does seem oversaturated, so that's kind of what's cluing me in. It is, of course, Fantasia. Not the best Disney game, not even the best Mickey Mouse game on the Sega Genesis. Eventually, I will get Castle of Illusion and World of Illusion. I just don't have them yet. But anyways, that is it for now. I effectively doubled my Genesis collection. I just ran through 11 games. I already had 10. So, yeah. Anyways, I shall see you guys next time, hopefully with some more retro games, because because of certain delays, the first big release I'm looking forward to isn't actually until the end of March. So until then, I shall see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Please remember to comment, rate, and subscribe.